The Olympic season is quickly approaching, but the preparation for the 2024 Paris Olympic Games has been building in America since last summer, where they had a very disappointing exit during the FIBA World Cup when the Americans failed to even make it onto the podium. Throughout its history, however, America has never really placed too much emphasis on the FIBA World Cup since its inception in 1950, winning only 5 gold medals compared to the 14 gold medals won in the Olympics over the same period of time. But the embarrassing exit the Americans had at the hands of the Germans was somewhat of a breaking point for men's USA basketball, with that pretty inexperienced team going down without a real fight. Immediately following that loss, news started to swirl about LeBron James and Steph Curry talking with other multi-time American-born All-Stars, and it quickly became apparent that there was some kind of an Avengers-style team forming, with commitments coming in the following days from players like Kevin Durant, Anthony Davis, Kawhi Leonard, and to even some people's shock and surprise, Joel Embiid switching up and deciding to play for Team USA instead of his home country of Cameroon or even France. This quickly assembled Olympic super team instantly shot up to be the favorites to win their 5th consecutive gold medal, with Canada being the next closest with 12-1 odds for taking home gold. But despite the amazing talent and big names surrounding the American team, I would still be pretty hesitant to think that their gold medal victory is all but guaranteed. Team USA on paper, again, looks like an amazing team, until you start to look at some of the other rosters, namely the Canadians, the French, and the Serbians, all who may not have an entire roster of all-star caliber players, but have teams consisting of role players that are used to fitting their roles that are going to be required of them, with other European countries also kind of having an advantage playing with the international rules that are established for the Olympics. For Team USA, there is one glaring issue that stands out, and that is age. For most NBA players, their prime years usually come between the ages of 25 to 30 years old. Well, the average age of the 2024 USA men's Olympic team is 31 years old, placing the average age of this team at the latter half of the average NBA prime. It may seem kind of anecdotal, but this is actually the oldest roster the US team has ever put out. Only 2 times did the team ever put out a roster that had an average age higher than 27 years old, and this team is 4 years past that. It seems like the golden average age, no pun intended, is around 26 to 27 years old. But again, this team is well above that, with them even voting a 39-year-old LeBron James as the best player on the court. Obviously, this really is a compliment to how durable LeBron is and how he's continually beat the shit out of Father Time. But I also don't think it's a great sign for the team as a whole, where they collectively are saying the oldest guy on the floor is the best guy on the floor, basically being their version of Kobe Bryant. Because Kobe in 2008 was an entire decade younger than LeBron is right now. Anthony Edwards is the only player so far that has come forward with the passion of saying he's the first option, and therefore this team's Kobe, which is kind of surprising considering the team does consist of both Jason Tatum and Devin Booker, who are usually the first 2 guys to remind everyone that Kobe was their mentor. Either way, age aside, I did previously mention how the USA team is filled with big names, but they aren't as well rounded as other teams. When the official team list was announced, some fans were quick to question why Jrue Holiday was a part of the team. But when you actually look at the rest of the roster, you quickly realize that there would be pretty much 0 defense coming from the perimeter. The addition of Derek White does help balance this team out more, and Anthony Edwards taking another step in his defending during the playoffs this year was massive, but it is still pretty early to be relying on that defense all the time. Apart from that, you also have Coach Steve Kerr and his love for a 3-guard lineup. A lineup that may not always be the best decision when playing international ball. And with the roster he has, I wouldn't be overly surprised if Coach Kerr busted out a 4-guard lineup in an elimination game, because that's who Steve Kerr is. With all of that being said, that doesn't mean we on this channel are expecting the Americans to miss out on the podium like they did in the FIBA tournament. Rather just suggesting that this won't be as easy of a run that many fans are expecting it to be. Mostly because of the reasons listed, as well as more stronger international talent popping up. Think about just the NBA, where there hasn't been a single American-born MVP since James Harden in 2018. For much of this year's season, there wasn't even an American-born player in the top 5 projected lists until Jalen Brunson made a wild push at the end. Team USA will be good, very good, but that doesn't mean you can automatically count out every other team.
While Team USA is looking the best it's looked in a while, there are also a number of countries that will no doubt put up a great fight against the basketball juggernaut that is America. Before we get into talking about any of the teams themselves, the first thing to note is that the vast majority of these teams are European, meaning that obviously most players play in teams around Europe. Why is this relevant? Well, the Olympics follow FIBA rules for basketball, which these Europeans have been playing for their entire lives. Some of the bigger rule differences include things like goaltending changes. Players are able to swat a ball away as soon as it touches the rim, or try to swat the ball right back into the rim on offense. Another change is that there aren't any paint restrictions. Defenders can plant themselves under the basket for as long as they want. This leads to a more defensive and physical game with a much larger emphasis on securing the board after a shot. This is extremely jarring for American big men who are used to the NBA's offense-oriented rule set. Jaren Jackson Jr. is a prime example of an American big man that was completely out of his element in last year's FIBA tournament. There are also a number of minor rule changes like one less timeout, a shorter game that goes 40 minutes, a slightly shorter three-point line, and fouling out after 5 fouls instead of 6. These minor changes really don't matter too much, but may be enough for a veteran NBA player to feel a bit thrown off in the heat of the moment. One more thing that might give NBA players trouble is that the Euro teams generally have players more willing to buy into systems. European basketball in general is a lot more structured. It's focused on making sure teams work together as seamlessly as possible, and that even the worst player on the court is offering valuable defense and great hustle plays. This is a hard contrast to the NBA style dump the ball to your star and let him cook approach that has dominated the NBA for the last little while. A lot of NBA players are used to exactly that. Cooking, all game. Some may struggle to fill roles and do the little things that all Euro players are used to doing. Now that we've explored why the American team might run into a bit of trouble despite being stacked, let's explore some of the teams that might be the ones to give them that trouble. The first country to talk about is undoubtedly France. This team may be lacking a bit in the guard department, but it can more than make up for that. Team France has Wemby suiting up for them, so if he can properly abuse the FIBA rules that he's still probably used to playing in at this point, the sky really is the limit. We've already seen what the guy can do in the NBA against all of these guys already. He's a freak and he's built for this rule set. And I'll say it now, I think there's upset potential here. If Wemby truly pops off, there's not a single guy on Team USA that can properly stop him. Bam is too short at a generous 6'9". AD could maybe pose a threat, but he's also pretty short for a Wemby matchup, so it doesn't really look good. Joel Embiid, on the other hand, does sort of have the size to deal with Wemby at the moment. Unfortunately, he starts whining like a baby when he can't flop around like a fish on the court. Another thing that France has going for it is that with these FIBA rules, Rudy Gobert might actually live up to his reputation as an elite defender for once in his life. So France looks to have a puncher's chance this Olympics for sure. Another team that looks very promising is Team Germany. It just won the FIBA World Cup in 2023 and obviously has a solid squad. Some of these noteworthy players that headline the team include Mo and Franz Wagner, Dennis Schroeder, and veteran NBA big man Daniel Theis. There's not much to say about Team Germany besides that it's a very solid team all around. It's filled with vets that have been on the team for a while now, so you know the chemistry is there. The last team worth mentioning isn't even European, which is kind of a shocker in the basketball world. Team Canada is actually looking pretty stacked when compared with just about any team that isn't Team USA. Almost the entire team is made up of known NBA players, believe it or not. Some of the more notable names include Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Jamal Murray, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Kelly Olynyk, Lou Dort, and everybody's favorite villain Dylan Brooks. Team Canada has already played an exhibition game against Team USA, losing 86-72. Don't let this final score fool you though. Most of Team Canada's starters actually had positive plus minuses. The only one who didn't was SGA, who was only -1. Although it was an exhibition game, the starters managing to keep up is extremely promising for Team Canada, who have already beaten a worse version of Team USA in FIBA last year for 3rd place. This Olympics is shaping up to be a pretty exciting one. Of course, what's probably going to happen is America cleans house with its stacked team of menaces. In the event that that doesn't happen though, some of these teams just mentioned are looking pretty good, and I wouldn't rule out an upset happening. France with Wemby abusing FIBA rules seems like a top candidate for this, as well as Canada with its team full of NBA players, even if it's nowhere close to being as star-studded as Team USA. Whoever wins, it should be a pretty good tournament to watch. International basketball still lags behind the US a lot, but the gap is getting slowly tighter year after year. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, drop a comment, leave a like, or subscribe. Everything means a lot to us, and we'll see you next week.